A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Story number 1. RTFM, written by Ice Cream and Wine. The Biotarch, named Grogok, wandered carelessly down the main avenue on the space station, followed at a respectable distance by his underlings. He liked the way the rest of the pedestrians parted before his progress and then closed behind him. It massaged his pride and confidence in himself, and he liked that. He liked it a lot. Not of fear, respect, or politeness. It mattered not to him, as long as his progress was not impeded. To be fair to him, he was an impressive specimen. Over 9 feet of mini Grodzilla, albeit minus the black ridges and heavy tail. Thankfully, for other life forms, he lacked the radioactive breath also. He also possessed reasonable length forelimbs tipped with talons and 2 horns on his head. A bone of contention for him were the horns, one natural and one made of metal. Deep in himself, he considered himself blessed for the loss of one of his horns, but would never admit it. He was jolted from his bout of introspection when he noticed a creature in front of him, and it had the effrontery to not move out of his way. "Begone, pink squishy thing! Else I teach you how to defer to your betters." "Unless you are Grogok, you can fuck right off," was the blunt response from Ranger Medic Fiona Forth, known to all and sundry as Sally. "I am Grogok, and what is it to you, weak thing?" said Grogok. "Been looking for you," said Sally, in a tone of voice that denoted to most creatures who weren't Grogok that a good time certainly weren't going to roll. A memory stirred in Grogok's mind, but he couldn't bring it to bear. "For what?" he inquired. "I'm pretty sure that you want this back. Losing one of these is a disgrace to your species, isn't it?" said Sally, pulling a silver chain out of her uniform, dangling it from which was a small green horn. "Where did you get that?" grasped Grogok. "I lost it years ago, when I had to care." "When you killed my father and took his knife as a trophy, which I can see on your belt. Is that what you were going to say?" said Sally, cutting him off. "Not exactly, but close enough," growled Grogok. "Give it back to me, now!" "Nah," said Sally. "But if you kill me, you can get it back, right?" The elusive memory emerged from the brain frog and presented itself, front and center to Grogok. "Oh, shit," he thought to himself. He remembered how badly injured and close to death he was. It was only the fact that his opponent suffered from some sort of seizure that allowed him to kill it with his horns. Still, he couldn't hold back from the confrontation, not in front of his followers. Besides, he now had 30-odd more years of combat experience to call on. "A challenge," he said aloud. "How delightful! It's many a moon since I had a challenge." "Well, it looks like all your birthdays have come at once, don't it?" grated Sally. "I'll meet you in the field of battle tomorrow." spat Sally. Overcoming his shock, Grogok stammered. "You invoke the ancient jewel of honor of Biotarch. It has not been invoked for nearly 100 years. You are aware that should you not honor the protocols of the jewel, you not only forfeit your own life, but the lives and possession of all your relatives," he said. "Yeah, I know," said Sally. "Trust me, that is not going to be a problem. If you agree to follow the strictures of the jewel of the honor to the letter, then I see no reason to decline." "You do like to do things by the book, don't you?" said Sally. "It is the right and proper so to do," stated Grogok. "Rules and codes of conduct are important to us." "Yeah, I know all that crap," growled Sally. "Come on then, let's be having you." "Challenge accepted," said Grogok. Sally's arm blurred and felt like an impact on his head. "What?" he thought. He shakily put a talon up to his head and discovered a 3rd horn growing from his skull. "I don't," he thought, as his legs could no longer support his weight, bringing him crashing to the floor. He lay gasping on the floor. Daddy stood over him, bent over and pulled the 3rd horn out of his head and cut off his last remaining real horn and waved it in front of his face. "You lot believe that you won't go into your afterlife if you lose both horns, right?" laughed Sally. She took her father's knife from Grogok's belt and threw it aside. "Your father's knife," he faltered. "Why don't you want it?" That wasn't my father's knife, she said. That was what he had while his own knife was being sharpened. If he had his real knife, he would have cut you to dough rags. Sadie waved a third horn in front of his face. This is my father's knife, a fair-born Sky 7-inch fighting knife, commonly known as a commander knife. This is what I put into and then pulled out of your head. But, you violated the Jewel of Honor code, and your life and goods are forfeit as you attacked with no warning, gasped Grigard, with nearly the last of his fading strength. Station, recite the Jewel of Honor rules, said Steady. The Jewel of Honor rules only apply to Britiarchs, came the AI's voice. And the attacking with no warning, said Sadie. As with any standard challenge, combat can be initiated when the challenge is accepted, said the AI. What? I don't understand, panted Krugok. Why do you think I conned you into fighting under your own rules, you twat? Your precious rules only apply to members of your own species, which is probably why the duel had fallen out of favor for years. You were losing too many of your combatants. But your own personal honor, whimpered Krugok. I know all about honor. Honor is just another way for the biggest and or strongest and or best equipped to beat the little guy. Feck that crap, said Sally. Krugok felt himself slipping away. Sally leaned close and said, By the book, you scaly bastard. By the book. End of story. Story number 2. The Infectious Nature of Sol 3, written by Sumber Marks. First, a brief summary. Sol 3 is a rocky planet roughly 30% bigger than Krokut, located about 750 light cycles away. It was discovered fairly recently by the Civilization Location Project. And, as per usual, after such a planet is discovered, a fleet was sent to study the conditions of the planet, its civilization, how close they are to develop FTL, that sort of stuff. Upon arrival, studies started, samples of the atmosphere were gathered, and pictures of the planet below were captured. For intel on the species' technological development, it was fairly easy. The humans, as they call themselves, had created a public data bank that anyone could use if they had access to it called the Internet. With that, it was discovered that they were fairly close to developing FTL. The only hardship encountered was the mind-boggling amount of debris at the edge of their planet's atmosphere. It would be expected, since said atmosphere was nearly twice as dense, and with their bigger gravity, the rockets would naturally need to be bigger in order to get to space. Some scratches were made on the outer hull due to impacts, but not much else in terms of damage. That is, if we're speaking only of the on-mission hardships. After arriving at the Lbry station, studies were conducted on the samples and all seemed well. The crew of the ship was not allowed to leave for a while in case anything unexpected happened to them. And it did. Hours after arriving, they began showing signs of body heat increase, and after scanning, it was shown that they had accidentally brought uncountable amounts of minuscule life forms with them. They insisted that they never got below the 50-kilometer height necessary for the atmospheric sample. Yet those creatures were slowly devouring their insides. Those life forms were only a few micrometers in size, but billions of them were present on both the crew's carapace and their inside organs, which were rapidly being shut down as the life forms continued on their destruction's path. Only an hour after discovery, every Kurchet on the crew were dead, with other scientists also beginning to show symptoms of infection. Analysis showed the crew weren't lying. They never landed on Sol 3 or got below where they were supposed to go, however. It seemed the life form still managed to get caught up in the ship's hull. The entire thing was covered in them. A state of emergency had been declared and the station was put on quarantine. Multiple attempts were made to exterminate the life forms, but total vacuum and special chemicals seemed to have no effect on them. It was like they were invincible. Thus, Lbry Station had ultimately been destroyed by being thrown into the sun, as there seemed to be no way of getting rid of the life forms, and having the station around would be too much of a risk. After this event, a lengthy discussion was made on what to do with the humans. They lived and strived amongst life forms that could survive almost anything, including the vacuum, space, devoured any living thing they encountered, and exhaled poisonous gases in its place. It is no doubt that as soon as they developed FTL, they'd unintentionally spread this horrible plague through the whole galaxy. And as soon as they realized how much damage they were doing, they might even start spreading it intentionally. If our best scientists couldn't get rid of those life forms, what makes us believe that they'd be able to? Some suggested exterminating them from afar using lasers. Others suggested bombarding them with just enough to delay their discovery of FTL for a while. But the ethics of such acts are still being discussed. For now, the whole galaxy is on a death counter, and the ones who will bring it are none the wiser. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.